private key to authenticate. All right, so because the recording stopped, let me just go over what I was saying. So basically we are using this directory traversal to read Shirohide's SSH key. Oh, okay. To read Shirohide's SSH key, we enter this particular path. We are traversing the directories and then we try to read it, we execute, and then realize that we are indeed able to read the IDRC key. So we can just save this to a file and then we try to authenticate as a Shirohide user. So I'm going to clear this and then I'm going to create a new file called Shirohide dot IDRC. And then I'm going to open this with Visual Studio Code because it provides me some very interesting tools to be able to like edit. You see, there were these new line characters and stuff in it. So we have to take all those bad characters out so that we can authenticate as that user. I'm going to make this snappy. We just use the find and replace. So find, and then we replace it with like an empty string, like not even an empty string, but we replace with nothing, right? So we're able to clear that part. Let's clear this other 1, 2. Okay, get rid of that too. And then this one, we can just clear it manually. Oh, there's one. Yeah, we can clear that one too. And then we save the file, right? Now we can go back to our terminal and change our permissions on the file. When you want to SSH using a private key, SSH requires that you change the permissions on the file so that it's not accessible to other users that are on the system, right? So we can do SSH Shirohide at an instance.htb, and then we provide the identity file as shirohide.idrc. And see whether we can log into the box with this this error in what's libcrypto. Let's just double check the file and see. Okay, I've set the right permissions on it. So we should be logged into the box. I think there's a problem with the IDRC file we read. Let me just copy it and then try to edit it again. Maybe we cleared something that was really important while trying to remove the bad characters. Okay, come back to Visual Studio Code. Let's clear this, we paste this in again. And we clear this. We would also want to clear this. So find, and let me see if we are clearing anything. Delete it. Okay. We'll replace all this. And then we'll also replace the comments. This one also. And then we save the file. And let's just hope it works this time. This error in libcrypto. I don't know whether it's a problem with my SSH or something. So the right permissions and all. Let me just copy this. I'm opening another file. First. Is this right test? Okay, so there was probably something, I don't know whether maybe some empty space or something that was I can't really tell. But probably there was some bad characteristics that was preventing us from SSH into the box. So you can see that we are currently in the box as what Shiro Hedge. Shiro Hedge. Okay. So as usual, if you're interested in flags, right, you can just list the files in the home directory, and then you can see we have a user.txt folder here. You can copy this and then you can copy this and then you can submit this as your flag, right? You can see this is an active box, right? So you can see people have left lane picks and things on the box. You can see people have left lane picks and the POCs and stuff on the box. Basically, when we get access to the box like this, we want to look around and see what you can leverage to gain or to root access. So we can start looking around the file system. We can see that we have the logs and projects directory. So we can look at projects. I'm sure project is where the application was running from. So you can see we have my wallet here. You can see we have two files, Instant API. You can go into Instant API and go into my wallet, and then you can see the source code for there. You can see the source code that the app was running with. You can cast the .env file to see if you can get anything interesting over here. You can see we have a secret key, very strong secret key you can't get here. So that's just by the way, right? We can try that. We can try to sudo into, or we can try to change user to the root user and try that password to see if that will work for us. I've tried that already. I already know that that does not work. So let's just look around the box and see what we can find, right? So I'm just going to go back to my home directory. And we have the logs directory. Let's see what's in there. You can see we have that one.log file that we are reading. And just for learning sake, right? I want to show you guys why that particular vulnerability we exploited actually worked. The directory traversal to read the files on the system. So you can go into my wallets, and then we can cut app.py. And then we can locate the route that allows us to read logs. So you can see this is the route that allows us to read logs. API version 1 admin/read log. And then you can see what is happening over here. So first of all, the log path is being read from the environment variable. So the environment here is being read from the environment variable, right? So you will remember that we read some .env file. That .env file, anytime you run the project, it gets loaded into the process's environment variable. So it gets loaded as the process's environment variable. So this basically just gets the log path from those environment variables. And then it would also get the log file name from the request, right? So request.args.gets log file name. And then if there's no file name provided, to respond with 400, and it will say missing log file. If there's a file name, what it's going to do is going to concatenate this path together with this log file name, and then it's going to open that file name with the open function. Right, so you can see over here, it's opening it in read mode, and then the output is equal to f.readlines. You understand? So basically, it's just opening this file. So you can see where the vulnerability lies. The vulnerability lies over here, where the original part is concatenated with the new user input, the user controlled input, right? One way to go about this is to make sure that you filter user input and all that. Like, there are better ways to do this, right? But we will not discuss that. Maybe after we are done, we can talk about some other ways that we can use to secure, or like we can use to prevent this thing from happening. So basically, that's what the vulnerability was. You can see it. Because of that, we are able to traverse directories and then read other files on the system. Okay, so let's just go back to where we were. Let me just go to the. Okay. Apart from that, you can see that there are no other interesting files over here. Apart from, you can see that some users have left some CVs, POC and stuff on the box over here because it's an active machine. Currently, hack the box. Let's just go to the home directory, see if there are any user directories there. No user directories. Let's just look around the file system. One interesting place you'd want to look at most of the time is the .up directory, right? It contains some interesting stuff. Sometimes it contains interesting things. Because we have a backups directory over here. We move into backups and see what it has to offer, right? And then you can see we have something called SolarPutty. So SolarPutty directory. If you go into SolarPutty, you can see we have a sessions backup that file, right? So let me just run file on it. I don't think there's file on this box, but let's just run file on it and see what it comes up with. I see file command not found. Okay. That's just ZX. Okay, let's open a new tab. So what we are going to do is we're going to exfiltrate this file. We are going to copy this file onto our attacker machine, and then we'll look at it and see what we can, I don't know, see if we can make sense of this file. First of all, let's just cut it and see its contents. It looks like some gibberish. Okay, it looks like base64, right? But remember that sometimes you can have base64, right? But it's just a representation of raw bytes, right? So you try to decode that base64 and you won't get anything substantial. So basically, we have a sessions backup that file, right? We can transfer this to our local machine and then play around with it. I'm going to do that using Netcat. So first of all, I'm going to set up my listener LNVP. And before I do, let me check my IP address. So I need it later. Okay, 225. And then we can now start our listener. Let's use 9001. So, oh wait, I forgot to do something. We want to copy a file, right? So whatever is being piped into Netcat should also write that to a file. So I'm going to call that file sessions backup dot that's. And then Netcat will be listening for connections. Anything we write onto the Netcat socket connections, it writes it into the file. So I'm going to do Netcat. I'm going to connect to that particular my machine on that particular port, and then I'm going to use sessions.backup as the input. So it says NC not found. Interesting. Let's see if there's Python on the box. Maybe we can use Python too. Oh yes, there's Python on the box. We can use Python test to get that file. So let's set up a simple Python server, and we can use wget. Oh wait, I'm still on the box. I set the thing up on my terminal. Where do I run it? Okay, let me just run it again. Okay, so let's go back to my attacker machine. I can just use wget to access the file instance.hdb on port 8000 and sessions backup. Sessions backup that's right. Says file not found. Okay, let's take in sessions. The spelling of sessions. Backup. Oh, okay. When we tried to write it earlier, it's created a file, but it doesn't look like the first one contains anything sensible. So let's just remove that. and then let's rename the new one. Give it a nice name. Okay. So now we have the sessions backup dot data on our file. Sorry, on our system. Now you realize that the directory that we had to go into before getting to that this session backup was Solar Putty file, right? So I'm guessing that this is a session backup for Solar Putty. Currently, we don't even know what Solar Putty is, so we can just look it up and see what Solar Putty does, right? For the sake of time, it's almost 8 o'clock, like just a minute to 8 o'clock. So we'll just try to make this thing, we'll just try to make this snappy. Um, we can we can just do a Google search. We can say Solar Putty back session backup. Okay, so you can look at this, right? You can see that, like, I've already gone through this. So let me just see what it is. So Solar Putty helps you to be able to keep SSH sessions, like, so that you don't always have to enter your password when you want to like establish a new SSH connection, right? So it has these session backup files, right, that are encrypted, right? So when you open up Solar Putty, it will use your key to decrypt that file, and then you'll be able to get access to the already saved sessions and then SSH into your box easily, right? So you can see that we have a link where you can read more about it maybe after this session. But what we are interested in is like decrypting the session data file, right? So there's a tool over here we can use to do that. There's a tool on GitHub we can use to do that. It's called Solar Putty Decrypt. It's basically just, let me see. And this looks like this looks like an exe file. I just want to decrypt on my Linux. I don't want to boot Windows yet. Let's look for other alternatives. I think there was a Python file amongst them. Uh, it's a Ruby file. So I'm just going to look for a Python version, right? Something that we can easily run. I could have still gone with the exe file, but that would be a lot of work. I would have to now boot my Windows VM. And we can check this out. Oh, I just downloaded the file. Let's see what it is. Okay, so this one is a Python file. So okay, let's just copy this. And we'll create a new file on our attacker machine. Right, we'll just call this deck.py. Basically, we are going to use that to decrypt the file. Or see if we can crack the password on the file. We'll run deck.py. Okay, session. So we have sessions backup, but that's here. Is this enter the password? Press enter if none. Oh, this one is asking for a particular password. I want one that can do a brute force to find the password. I found one when I was doing this box originally. I found one too when I was doing this box originally. It was a Python script. Sometimes you just have to search. You just have to keep searching before you come across what you want. Oh, it did not download the same file for me again. But if this is not even working, right, we can even modify the script to just like loop through words like words in a file and try to decrypt it.
Maxim, you can check
Let
the
me just
chat.
call
We're still
this
left to one of the
GitHub.
links there.
People ask you put a link. Let me check that out. How do I even copy this? For some reason, it keeps rendering the link. Okay.
So Maxam, just use the writer's name. So the user who wrote it is it's Watchmaker, and then you just search with the site GitHub. So it's Watchmaker Solar Putty Cracker. Yeah. Makerr.
Oh, come on. I spelled it right. Correct.
Yeah, you did. So just do maybe site :github.com and then add that.
I don't think that will work because I've already done a normal search and it's not even coming up with anything. But let's just see. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. How can I even send that to you?
No problem. Like I even have, like I have the scripts from the last time I did it. This is it. Let me just move this from that place over here. Let's cut it. Okay. Little Python 3. So some of these scripts you actually have to look. You have to keep searching before you can find them. This one it took me quite some time to find it. Like when I was originally doing the box. So I'm going to specify my web list. I have my rocky.txt inside my downloads folder. So how should I say, after running it for some time, you can see that the password has been cracked, and the password is for Estrella, and you can see that we have a JSON data over here. It's not quite clear. Let me just use JQ to make it look prettier, and then we can see what we're dealing with. Okay. So you can see that it was basically, or this file basically stores the root session, right? So you can see that the root password is over here, and we can just take this password and change our user to the root user. We can just log in as the root user. So you can do su root, enter the password, and we are root. If you're interested in Flask, you have your root.txt over here. Yeah, so that is all for what's the name of the box again? Instance. Yeah. That's all for instance. If you have any questions, please throw them at me. I'm ready to answer any question that you have. Hello, any questions in the chat?
No, we don't have any question in the chat.
Okay. Okay. Any contributions? Guys, I want to hear from you.
Maxam, can you hear me?
Okay, so someone is asking about subdomain brute force. Well, sometimes, unless you have a very good word list, there are some certain subdomains that would be very difficult for you to find, right? And there are different ways of finding subdomains, not just by brute force. Like there are other ways to find subdomains. Sometimes brute force is good. If you have a good word list, you can find some really interesting subdomains. But like in certain cases, right, some developers are very, very bad. They would use a subdomain that's isn't in your book, your word list, your brute force word list, right? Because maybe they're just using it for personal use. So they have the luxury to type some random series of characters as their subdomain, followed by their like main domain, and then try to, and then access it. So in such cases, maybe subdomain brute forcing may not help, but it's still good enumeration to like do subdomain brute forcing. Over here, we didn't have to do that, right? I doubt if. Okay, maybe I think if we had a very good word list, we could have found a Swagger UI. Could have found a Swagger UI subdomain. The my wallet version 1, that one there, I really doubt if you could have located it without finding it in the APK file, right? Let me see if
So
there are
the
any
hack
other
crawler,
questions.
wasn't it brute forcing? The hack crawler you used.
Okay, so the hack crawler doesn't brute force. What it does is that it just passes the content of the page, right? And then after passing the content of the page, it will try to extract all the links that are inside or like embedded in the HTML. I don't know if that's clear.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay to brute force, but in certain cases, it's not really advisable. Yeah, you can brute force. Sometimes it's really helpful. Like you can find things that, like under normal circumstances, you wouldn't find, and like even the real world, like sometimes you have to brute force. But if you want to prioritize stealth, then like you would want to think twice about brute force, and you want to do like very calculated brute forcing. Any other questions for me? Okay, someone is asking about sublister. Sublister. So one thing about sublister is that sublister tries to find this thing, subdomains, like using various means, right? One way I know by which sublister tries to find domain is like it uses DNS records. It tries to search tries to use docs on different search engines to try to find subdomains. So in a case where like you are working on a domain that is local, like .htb, sublister may not help you, right? Because it will try to use search engines and the rest, and HTTP's local domain is not out there, right? So it may not help. It may not give you any reasonable input, right? Yeah. Any other questions for me? Okay, so if you want to do subdomain brute force, you can use GoBuster, you can use WFAS, let me see, you can use FAF. Yeah, like there are a whole lot of tools that you can use for subdomain brute forcing. normally, but normally it's normally helpful when you are inside subdomain brute force. Normally helps when you're like you are in an internal environment, right? Maybe you go external. Mostly those subdomains will be exposed externally. In rare cases where like those subdomains are not exposed externally, then maybe you can do subdomain brute forcing to find them. Any tools I recommend in general? Someone's asking what tool that was. Which particular part of the presentation were you talking about? Are you talking about? And then 21 Minds is asking any more tools I recommend in general. And tools for what exactly? Subdomain brute forcing or subdomain enumeration. Yeah, so you can check out you can use Sublister, right? But sometimes you can even do Google Docs. Like the most important thing is that like if you know how these tools are coming up with the subdomains, right? You can even do them manually and then find it. So that it doesn't really like you don't really have to rely too much on tools to be able to get your subdomains. But like a good tool talking of good tools, we have the likes of Sublister and other. I think Amas is also one of them. Okay, someone is asking. He says he just came and saw me analyzing instat.apk. So that tool is called Jadix.gui, Jadix.gui, right? Basically, what it's used for is for decompiling Android applications, right? Luckily, in this case, it was this application was written in Java, so we're able to Jadix GUI is mostly built for Java and Kotlin applications, right? Java and Kotlin built Android applications, so it helps you to decompile that particular code. Now, normally, when the APK is first built, right, it is stored in a form that is called bytecode, right? Mostly for Java applications, and that particular bytecode is run by the Dalvik virtual machine. So basically, what Jadix GUI is doing is that it is taking that particular bytecode and trying to compile that bytecode to get an equivalent of the source code, right? So in doing that, we're able to get something that looks like the source code, and we're able to do some analysis and tell what's like the developers were doing, or like be able to tell the business logic of the application. Any other questions? Or like I hope you're fine. I hope I explained that properly. Okay, wonderful. Any other questions for me? I'm guessing. Yes, there are ways that devs could make it very difficult to analyze APK files. Over here, we can see that the function names and all those things still persisted, right? There are actually ways to compile your code that will actually obfuscate the function names and all those things, right? That is where reverse engineering comes in, where you actually have to sit down, try to understand what the code is doing, rename some of the functions, try to like make sense of the code, right? So obfuscation is one way by which they can hide or they can prevent you from analyzing APK files. Yeah. So, any other questions or contributions? Okay, I guess if there are no other contributions or questions, if there are no contributions or questions, right? Then I guess we can call it a day. I hope I'll be seeing you guys I'll be seeing you guys at the BRCTF. Just aside from Jadix GUI, which other tools can you recommend for analysis? Well, there's MobSF. You can try out MobSF. But when it comes to the compilation of Java code, Jadix GUI is like the ideal tool. And I don't really use any other tool apart from Jadix GUI. But you can also check MobSF. That one is more automated. Like it does the compilation for you, tries to inspect the code and see if there are any interesting things in the code. And like you're even able to generate a report for the analysis of that particular APK file. So you can look at MobSF. And when it comes to analysis, right, it also depends on the kind of APK file you're analyzing. If it was built with Flutter, would have to analyze it differently with some different set of tools, right? But because this one was built with Java, right, that's why we are using Janix GUI. Now, when you get the APK file first, what you're supposed to do is that you're first supposed to determine which framework or which language. Okay, not only the language, right, but which framework was used to like write that particular Android application. And that will show you how like you go about the compilation, right? Yeah. So yeah, as I was saying, right, I hope I see you guys at BRCTF. I'd like to meet all of you. Yeah. So and that's it. I guess you can call it a day. We'll meet next week again at the same time. Oh, well, well, honestly, I don't even think I'm good enough, right? But like we consistently learn every day, right? So there are things that myself like I keep learning every day. Yeah. So I don't even know how to answer this question, honestly. But yeah. All right, so guys, I'm guessing you can call it a day. It's been a long night. Or you guys want to have longer sessions than this? If you want to have longer sessions than this, you can also let us know. Oh, nice. Interesting. I think the last session we had was on BEPSuite, where we talked about how to use BEPSuite to identify like authentication, like vulnerabilities and all that. Yeah. As time goes on, we'll also be doing more things about BEPSuite. We'll be looking at web application testing a lot. Okay, guys. We are going to call it a night. Bye.
From where close to that.